recording of this so that then people who aren't able to come to the presentation tonight can actually still be able to view the presentation. Okay, so hopefully you are all here because you want to hear about the Nobel Creativity Program, which is at Kennedy High School. Last year, we actually graduated our first cohort of students who went all the way through the program from 6th grade at Valley View Middle School all the way through 12th grade at Kennedy High School. So we're really excited about this program and the fact that we have been able to serve so many kids through this. I have some introductions I wanted to do. First off, my name is Meredith, and I'm the Gifted and Talented Coordinator, and I focus on Kennedy and Jefferson High Schools for the Gifted and Talented Department. I also wanted to recognize and introduce Chris Krenz. She is the Assistant Principal at Kennedy High School. I don't know, Chris, if you want to say anything to introduce yourself.
Hi, I've been at Kennedy for a really long time. Awesome school, awesome people. So super excited to be here, and hopefully I can meet most of you in person someday. That would be nice. I do miss seeing people in real life. So anyway, thanks.
And Chris has been really a great advocate for this program and is the person that I work shoulder to shoulder with the most at Kennedy in terms of scheduling these kids, in terms of getting them the services and needs that they have addressed. And so she's really a great person to have representing the Kennedy admin team. I also wanted to introduce Natalie Peterson. She is a teacher in our program. She works with the 9th grade class, and she has her own slide coming up later where she'll get to talk to you about the great ways that she differentiates for her kids. But I was wondering, Natalie, if you wanted to introduce yourself and tell them anything you wanted about yourself and why you work with Nobelers.
Yeah, hi. My name's Natalie Peterson, like Meredith said. I have been at Kennedy for 3 years now, and I love it. Well, this will be my 3rd year, and I love it. This is my 2nd year now working with the Nobel program, and I just really, really adore it. I have always been a lover of the arts and a creative thinker myself. And I really love being able to kind of think outside the box when I'm planning my units and my lessons with the students. It's consistently been one of the highlights of my day, my week, my trimester, my year. So I'm super, super excited to hopefully get to know you as well.
And then lastly, I wanted to introduce Erin Boltic. She's the director of the Gifted and Talented Department.
Hello, everyone. I've just dropped a couple links into the chat. So you have a link to both a testing preference form and our website where you can find out everything you need to know about applying to any of our programs. We figured out the other day that this is the 8th year for Nobel. So as Meredith said, we had a graduating class that's gone all the way through. This is our 8th year, and where it started and where it is now are vastly different. It's really evolved and become just a great program with very committed teachers. So I'm excited to have you here tonight to listen to it and to just say that I'm super proud to be part of this awesome team.
Thank you. So we have 2 sort of different types of gifted programs that we run out of the Gifted and Talented Department. One is Dimensions Academy and the other is Nobel. Dimensions Academy is focused on providing an accelerated option for high school students, and it's really designed about trying to give them college level academic offerings while they are in high school, and is very focused for a very particular type of gifted kid. A gifted kid who reads above grade level, really thrives in challenging environments, and really needs that to be happy. The Nobel program is designed for a different type of gifted kid, a type of gifted kid who, also is an intelligent student. Like, you need to read at the 85th percentile and above to qualify for the program. But it's more importantly, it's not just focusing on students' academic needs. It's also focusing on the fact that these types of students need to have a creative outlet in order for them to even be a happy person. Like, what we've noticed about these creative learners is that they are better at learning if they are taught in a way that is meeting with their sort of way that they think about the world, which is through creativity. And so I'm going to talk tonight about this program, and my hope is that while I'm talking about this program tonight, and while Natalie talks about her class, that you could be thinking about whether or not this would be a good fit for your kiddo, because it's not the right fit for every student, but I would argue that's true of Dimensions as well. Like, we're trying to provide a way for, one type of kid, a specific type of kid, to be able to have a high school experience that's really going to make them thrive. So what is the Nobel Pathway? It's an honors humanities program, so it is housed in the AP Honors sort of pathway at Kennedy, but its focus is to nurture and develop the creativity of high school students. In order to participate in this program, you do have to be a student at Kennedy High School. So it's not like the Dimensions Academy program where you could go to either high school. For the Nobel program, you do have to be a Kennedy High School student, but you don't have to be from the Kennedy attendance area. You could open enroll from the Jefferson attendance area or from another district and still be able to go to the Nobel program at Kennedy. In terms of thinking about why we have designed this program at Kennedy, it's because when we talk to people, what do our learners need outside of academia? Their number one answer is we need creative people. Okay? According to the U.S. Labor Department, 65% of all kids today will have jobs that don't even exist right now. Today's students will need to be more creative and have creative solving problem abilities more so than any other previous generation. Okay? Like, we're not going to get out of problems like, climate change with just thinking, oh, we should do what we've done before. Like, we need people to be thinking and from new perspectives. But if you look at the chart that's on the right, what happens is that as people get older and stay in school longer, frequently what happens in public schools is that we sort of like drill and kill the creativity out of kids. What we want to do is construct an academic environment in which people are actually encouraged to think outside of the box, so that when they leave Kennedy High School, when they go to college, when they get their professions, when they stumble upon a problem, they won't just go, oh, I only know how to do A or B. They can look at that problem and go, oh, I've never thought of that before. Let me think of all the different ways to solve that. And that's really the type of thinking that we're trying to nurture in this program. In terms of thinking about your student, I want you to think about them. Are they someone who thinks outside of the box and inside the box and sees the world differently? Like, if they see a movie, are they asking, well, why did that character have to do that? Could this character have done this other thing? Like, do they sort of think outside of what has been presented to them? Do they ask a lot of questions? Are they intensely focused? Like, when they're reading or when they're painting or when they're playing their music, like, can you not get their attention because they're so in-depth thinking about what they're doing? Are they really emotional? Like, when they hear a news story, can they really connect with that story and imagine what it's like to be living that experience? Those are the types of things that we have noticed in our creative learners, and we have noticed that they learn better when teachers are actually plugging into these creative strengths as opposed to ignoring them or discouraging them. Whoops. And so what we all the teachers who are teaching in our program have all received creativity training from the Gifted and Talented department. And then we've also offered them additional opportunities for more training. And we also in an ongoing way will pay for, other additional professional development. And what we're trying to do through these trainings is nurture these things with our teachers, which is that we want them to have a safe space for divergent thinking. Students are going to do the best when they realize that there can be lots of different answers to that problem and that they can be unusual. And when there's space to brainstorm, when there's space to think out of the box, and it's not just, we're going to go with the first two answers and that one's right and that one's wrong, that's going to really shut down this type of kid. Nobel teachers provide a lot of what we call student voice and choice, where students get to sort of everybody's read the same novel, for example, but they have a bunch of different ways that they get to show mastery. They get to show, hey, I know a lot about that topic, and I get to sort of pick a vehicle by which to explain it, as opposed to everybody's writing the same paper. Everybody's doing the same fill in the blank. Because that is something that's really going to motivate a Nobel student, is that they got to sort of be in the driver's seat for deciding how they got to demonstrate what they knew. We encourage them to use creative strategies and techniques, and you're definitely going to get to hear about some examples of that tonight. To encourage multiple solutions, as opposed to just being like, nope, that's the only thing that this character could have done. To incorporate novelty, like to do something unique and different. And to provide constructive feedback, as opposed to just like, yep, that was good, nope, it wasn't good. To, offer people feedback in a way that sort of pushes them to think about how to take their creative ideas to the next level. And then to be intentional about creativity. Like being in the Nobel program doesn't mean that you like color once a week. It's about you are being given situations where you as a learner get to think about how something could turn out differently. And it really puts you in the driver's seat for your own education. We identify students for this program by looking at their MAP reading scores. So these classes all at Kennedy are in the honors track. And so we really want people who are able to read at grade level. And so the requirement is you have to read at the 85th percentile. And then we give students the Torrance test of creativity. And the Torrance test of creativity is not a test that is like a normal test. It's not. It's actually the only test that I've ever given as a teacher where afterwards some students are like, can I take a break and talk to the other kid about what I just did? Because their brains are going at all these different levels. You'd get a prompt and you would have to and the prompt could be imagine that, horses had wings. List as many things as you could come up with for what you could do with a horse with wings. Those types of things. Or it gives you a shape and you have to draw as many different things as possible as you could with that shape. So it's and it's not grading you on your artistic ability. It's not grading you on your spelling. It's just grading you and ranking you based on how you were thinking outside of the box. And so what the Torrance test of creativity measures and what we try to nurture in the Nobel program are these 4 core skills: fluency, flexibility, originality, and elaboration. Fluency is how many ideas you can come up with. Flexibility is are they all the same things or are you thinking in different ways? So for example, if we did a brainstorm of all the things that are green and all of the things, and you listed 20 things, but they're all vegetables, that would be showing a high rate of fluency, but not a high degree of flexibility. But if you said, for example, lettuce, but you also said envy, that would show a degree of flexibility because you're thinking about emotions as well as thinking about, for example, vegetables. Originality, so coming up with an idea that's unique that other people haven't thought of. And elaboration, taking an idea that you have, but then actually taking it to its fullest conclusion, writing a new chapter for the end of the book, writing an alternative ending, coming up with something that's, you've got an idea, but then actually carrying it out so that it can be something that you can share with somebody else. The Nobel students at Kennedy are grouped in a cohort with likability peers who also think outside the box. We think that this is important because high school, like middle school, is a time in people's lives where people are told pretty consistently from their peers that they're supposed to be just like everybody else, that you're supposed to be following the drummer. And our kids do not follow the drummer. They are drumming their own drum. Some of them are screw the drum, I'm going to play the triangle. They're doing their own thing. And they really enjoy getting to be a part of this community of people who get them. Okay, and so they're in their Nobel English class together, and sometimes their English and social studies class together. But they're also in a normal year when we're not having a pandemic. They're also housed in their advisory together, and they really get to sort of have that as a space where they get to nurture each other and validate each other for 4 years. And all of the people who are a part of the program, even their advisors, have been trained in creativity by the Gifted and Talented department. So in terms of talking to Kennedy teachers about how do they promote creativity, we've got some specific things that we have used to try to promote this with teachers that they have used. So one technique that I've used a lot and that I've witnessed Natalie use in her own classroom is using Socratic seminars, which are where everybody's read the same text, and then you use that and the students are generating the questions and they're guiding the discussion, and you see them go cool places, but it's a student-led discussion. Wow, my cat is like singing in the background. He has a lot of opinions about Socratic seminars, which I didn't even know. One of the ways that we perfect their Socratic seminar abilities is through using Scamper. Scamper is a creativity strategy. The S stands for substitute, the C stands for combine, the A stands for adapt, the M stands for modify, the P stands for put to other uses, the E stands for eliminate, the R stands for reverse. So what we'll sometimes use is Scamper with a topic that we've studied and get them to have some creative discussion. So your quintessential example for eliminate is like, if this character wasn't in the story, how would that story be different? Or for reverse, let's say that the North loses the Civil War. How would that change the course of American history? Or for substitute, what if what if this story was told in a different time period? Or for combine, what if we took this story and put them together, or we combined this character and this character with each other? How would that change? Or like adapt. That's the thing that our students understand the best because of musicals like Hamilton, where you take something but you do it in a totally different way. Like you make it a musical, or you turn it into a cartoon, or so sort of talking through these different things. And then what we've noticed is that they will then take those skills and bring them to the Socratic seminar, and then their questions and the way that they're answering things and the way that they're guiding each other in that discussion really sort of takes off in a new way. Another strategy we promote is the 6 thinking hats. And these are, I like to remind the students, they are metaphorical hats. They are not actual hats, although we have hats for the department. And as much as the kids like to wear them, I'm like, no, we're not all wearing the same hats, dudes. My daughter just finished elementary school, where it's a time where I swear to God, every week I got a lice notice. It's like, no, we're not wearing the hats. But for metaphorical hats, what you do is that you're taking turns sort of thinking and looking at a problem from different points of view. So when you're wearing the white hat, you're asking questions and sort of information gathering. When you're wearing the red hat, you're just addressing like, what are your gut reaction? When you're wearing your black hat, think of it like a judge hat, like, you're sort of looking at the weaknesses, the difficulties. Then when you're wearing the yellow hat, you're optimistic, like, what are the benefits of doing this? The green hat is the creative hat, like, let's say money is not a barrier, or let's say, these barriers have been taken away. What are some new ways that we could solve this? And then the blue hat is sort of the metacognitive hat, but now that you've thought from all these different points of view, what do you think we should do? Or like, what do you think is the best solution to this problem? And so what we like about using these hats when we're working with students is it means that students and everybody has their go-to hat. Like we all know people who, when you start talking about a problem, they will just stay in the red hat thinking like, oh, I'm scared. Or they'll only point out the negatives of something, or they'll only think about the positive things. But what we've liked about using these thinking hats is it forces students to have to sort of step out of where they're at and look at a problem from a different point of view, because they have to. It's like, nope, we're not doing that type of thinking right now. We're doing this. And so I've used this in class with talking about different problems that global problems. So we've looked at some of China's demographic issues post the one child policy using these hats. Greg Urbish at Valley View Middle School has used these hats to sort of look at like the Trail of Tears and sort of looking at documents from Andrew Jackson. I've seen Josh Koval at Kennedy use these hats by analyzing a story and sort of then looking at that story from these different hats. But this is another strategy that we encourage teachers to use in the Nobel program. When asking teachers like what do they do in the Nobel program to try to bring out the best of their creative kids? Katie Jewell sent me an example of one of the strategies that we promote in the program, which is called Raft. And Raft does not actually mean rafting. It means where you ask students to think about the role, the audience, the format, and the topic. And so what Katie Jewell did is in her interdisciplinary class where they're taking AP US History and AP Literature, what they did is the students got to pick a role, they got to pick an audience, they got to pick a format, and their topic was Lincoln an emancipator? And so she showed me some of the examples of her students' work, and I totally loved them. Like one was a student who I had actually also taught too, where he wrote a rap. And he wrote it talking about, Frederick Douglass's concerns about Abraham Lincoln, and it was just hilarious, and it was awesome, and he had music, and it was a legit recording. It was pretty cool. Another student, she wrote like a play where she was like, and where Abraham Lincoln was writing and it was a dialogue between Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, where Abraham Lincoln, after he was deceased, was writing letters to Frederick Douglass about, his regrets about his presidency. But what I like about these types of projects is that they give students the opportunity to show what they know, but in a way that feeds their soul, but also that puts them in the driver's seat, where they get to sort of, they're the ones in charge of, their own learning and showing what they know. Another example that Dan Richardson and Chris Lyons have used historically in their interdisciplinary class is where they've studied the Epic of Gilgamesh, and the Epic of Gilgamesh, for those of you who don't know, is ancient, this ancient Sumerian myth, and it would be possible to study that myth and have it be a little dry. But it is not dry with Dan Richardson and Chris Lyons, because what they do is after they study and read the Epic of Gilgamesh in translation, then what they have to do is they have to design a song. They have to write their own song to the beat of a previous song. And so it's like you would have to write a song about the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, but to the tune of Michael Jackson's Thriller. And like you cannot write a song with your own lyrics to somebody else's beat and not actually understand what the Epic of Gilgamesh is about. And it's like literally people's favorite day. And I've gone to see the kids perform, and they are absolutely hilarious. Because we're in this weird situation of distance learning, Dan and Chris wanted to keep the creativity of this assignment, but they don't have the ability to sort of have the kids all work together the same way they have historically, because they can't offer the same level of tech support. So they're still letting kids do this project if they wanted to. But then other kids are getting to do a Gilgamesh scamper, where, like, for example, they get to choose 3 of the following scamper prompts. And the types of prompts are, like, for substitute, how would the epic change if the story was told from the point of view of a regular citizen of Uruk instead of Gilgamesh? Or for adapt. If you had to write an epic that presented a more modern hero to deal with similar issues as presented in Gilgamesh, what would that look like? Or put to another use. How would this epic need to be adapted to become the plot for an adventure thriller Marvel movie? Another option they did is they gave people some, images that are similar to the types of things that we have on the Torrance test of creativity, where it could be like a circle and a line, and then they had to like use those, and this is another example of that force fitting, where you take something and you take this other content and you force them to sort of put them together. And so what Dan and Chris has given them is these 5 sort of like weird, lines with shapes, and it's like, okay, you have to use these to turn this into a story about the Epic of Gilgamesh, where they have to finish drawing it and then come up with a way that they can sort of create these different images that sort of work together. But what I really like is that Dan and Chris have worked hard to try to keep the spirit of the Nobel program, where they're giving students voice and choice, they're giving people creative options, but also not saying, oh, well, this is distance learning, so we're going to throw the creativity out the window, when a matter of fact, they know that this is how these kids learn, and that you can't throw the creativity out and still expect these types of students to be able to show what they know, because this is actually how they learn, and this is how they connect with the content. So now I want to turn it over to Natalie. She is the teacher for the Nobel 9th grade class. And it's, really sort of the center point of our program, because it's where kids from Oak Grove and Valley View who haven't taken classes before with each other are working together to sort of develop these relationships. This photo is from her class when she had a resident artist who was working with them on storytelling last year. But I visited her class multiple times throughout last year and really enjoyed getting to see the work that she was doing with them. And so I'm hoping that, Natalie, you can take it from here and tell them a little bit about what you've done in the past, but also how you're trying to support our creative kids during distance learning. Hoping, however, that we will not be doing distance learning next year. But I still think it would give people a good indication of, a wide variety of ways that you try to, have kids access this, access these skills and develop these skills.
Absolutely. So the Nobel program, the 9th grade Nobel, is a lot of creative opportunities. Last year, we all started off reading the same novel in order to kind of get on the same page, make sure that everyone could read critically together. And then we had lots of choice as far as their summative, what kind of product they would create, and they had several topic options. So we still stayed a little bit traditional then. We do lots of storytelling in trimester 2. Students write a creative story. We did a summative project at the end of the year that students really loved this past year. I'm hoping I'll be able to adapt it this year, where we had like 12 different song choices, and we all listened to the songs together, and then students had to choose one of the songs and write the short story behind the song. So we had a lot of fun with that. It was a super exciting kind of experiment for everyone. This year, we're starting off in distance learning. It's weird, it's different, but it's given a ton of opportunity for voice and choice. We're actually doing an inquiry-based project this year for this whole trimester. So students explored topics and hobbies that interest them, and then explored how to come up with deep, thoughtful questions about those topics. And now they are in the process of selecting one and researching it throughout the rest of this trimester. And at the end, they have about 6 different options of creative ways that they can present the information. They can do an infographic. They can do an essay if they want to. They can do a website. They can create a cartoon video, like an animated video. They can do an info Instagram thread. So there's tons of different options. I really like to get creative, and I have a lot of fun exploring different websites and applications that we can use in class. And I find that the more I spend time looking for those cool things, the more there is that excitement to complete those assignments, like Meredith said, because this is the stuff that these kids are excited to do, to make those beautiful products, or to think like that outside of the box, to explore a question. Some of the questions students are exploring this trimester: how can we improve our prison system? How do people become evil? Who are the top 5 best presidents and why? What social constructs are at play that there is not professional softball? So lots of really wonderful questions. You can see kind of how every single one of those kids' personalities shines through that question a little bit. And so there's been a lot of fun opportunity for us to share our questions, share our findings. And then at the end, there's going to be a lot of really diverse, exciting, different formats of presentations that'll be those final products. So I'm super excited about that. And I think it's going to be something that we'll probably be able to do in the classroom next year or online or whatever format happens to exist. So that might be like a sneak preview of one of the units that you guys are doing.
Cool. And Natalie hopefully is going to stick around for the Q&A. So then if people have got other questions, I think it's really great that we also have a teacher here who can talk about that. So Natalie was just talking about our 9th grade class. And so the Nobel kids would take the 9th grade class together, and they would also have an advisory and with their cohort. Then when they get to 10th grade, they would take interdisciplinary, we call it Interdis. And what it is the AP World History and Honors English 10. And they're basically 2 hours a day that they're there, and they're actually in a room that shares a wall. And so some days those kids are working all together. Some days they're working with their different separate teachers. But the idea is that they're studying history and then works of literature from that time period, so that they're basically sort of learning that world literature within that historic context. And the students love it, and that's where the Gilgamesh examples that I gave you are from. And then students would also earn dual enrollment credit for Intro to Literature at Normandale Community College as a part of that class. In 11th grade, they would take a different class, which we also call Interdis, but this is AP US History and AP Language and Composition. And that's where the examples from the Raft was that I showed you from Katie Jewell. And so kids are, again, they're taking AP US History, and then they're looking at examples of rhetoric, and but that are from the time periods that they're looking at. So for example, when Cassie Leisher is teaching with them AP US History and they're covering like Abraham Lincoln, then they would be looking at a speech given by Abraham Lincoln and and sort of analyzing that and taking that apart, or looking at something written by Frederick Douglass and analyzing it and taking it apart. But the idea is that the two classes, just like in 10th grade, are sort of two sides of the same coin. Like you're looking at these things, but in this context. And from what we've seen, that works really well for these types of kids. They are able to, really grasp those historical concepts because they're tied to creative works that they're looking at. And in 12th grade, we encourage them to take AP Literature and Composition. And we also have a ton of electives at Kennedy that we have definitely noticed that is where the Nobel kids gravitate. And so, overwhelmingly, our Nobel kids are like all the roles of the play, like they are in show choir, they're in orchestra, they are, these kids are super involved in their school doing creative things with other creative things. And so I'm sure Natalie, like me, is always invited to a gazillion performances that I could go to all the time. And so that is also really cool that this cohort of kids, they are taking classes together, but they're also hanging out with each other outside of school, like actually creating things together. The fine arts department, particularly the art department, would really like me to let people know that some of their most outstanding students are in the Nobel program. And part of that has to do with the fact that if you were a Nobeler in Valley View, which you don't have to take in the Valley View program to be in the Nobel program at Kennedy, but if you were in the Valley View program, you had 3 years of art, whereas the other kids only had the occasional trimester of art. And so students, when they come to Kennedy, get to jump over Intro to 2D art and go directly into Intro to Painting or Advanced 2D art because you are coming to Kennedy with more art experience. But the fact is that if you look at who are the award winners, and who are the people who are getting to AP art at Kennedy, those are Nobel students. And so we definitely see a lot of our Nobel kids are not only getting their creative time in their core classes, they're also taking electives where they're also getting some additional, creativity time. We also try to offer enrichment opportunities where students get to meet with local authors, spoken word artists, get to talk to directors, playwrights. Natalie, for Natalie's point, I had a picture of how she had a resident storyteller with her last year. I will be honest, we have not figured out. Part of it has to do with the fact that I don't know how long we're going to be in distance learning. But even if this year we are not able to provide those same types of enrichments, the benefit of is that it's a 4-year program, not a 1-year program. And so regardless of what's going on this year, we will be able to revisit that and offer those types of opportunities again. And as I said before, we have other types of enrichment programs that are offered after school. And what's interesting is, as I said, I definitely see a bunch of our Nobel kids in show choir, band, orchestra, the musical, and the play. But also, you know what? You need those same types of creative thinking skills to be on Science Olympiad and to be on the math team. And so some kids are like, you know what? I'm going to use my creative thinking, but in this totally non-humanities related way. And I think that's awesome, because the fact is that you can't solve the problems they have for the math team if you're like, I'm going to use this formula the way I've been taught. Like, the math team questions like really ask you to use some geometry and some algebra and some trig. Like, you have to combine these different types of math thinking that you've been taught to answer a question in a way that nobody's taught you how to do it. So I also think it's cool that we have other types of opportunities that can sort of allow kids to extend their creative thinking at Kennedy. One thing that we believe really strongly in the gifted program, and something that I think that I can say that we believe really strongly at Kennedy, is that creativity can be grown in all students. Everybody comes with a certain degree of creativity, and then our goal is to grow that, and so that people can have more creativity when they leave. And what's been really exciting to be a part of this program actually starting at Valley View and then coming to Kennedy is that we have done entrance and exit testing at different points along the way, and where we've given them the Torrance test of creativity to get in the program, and then later on we've given them a different version of the Torrance test of creativity, and we have been really excited about the fact that we have seen growth. Or 2 years ago, for example, I did different data collection where I used a particular creativity rubric, and then at the end of the year I used that same rubric, and again saw tremendous growth. And so what I think is important is that if you or your student value creativity, I can honestly say that that is not something that you get a creativity grade for, but we definitely have data that shows that our students' creativity are growing in this program, and that this program has been successful at nurturing that. In terms of what are the benefits to being in the program, the students' creativity is nurtured during a period of development where students are frequently pressured to actually be less individualistic and less creative. Students are taught to use 21st century thinking skills. Students work with students who push and challenge them rather than isolate them for their creativity. I have the juniors right now as they would be juniors in my homeroom that I've had for the past 3 years, and I love it how like a kid will come in and say something off the wall that in a normal class kids would be like, oh my gosh, and instead these kids are like, oh my god, that's so funny, how about if we did this with that or this with that? Like, they can take an idea and run with it and nurture each other. And I just think that that is so important for kids to have a nurturing environment where they actually have kids that they like, who actually, feed their souls. And the students are exposed to mentors who will model creative career paths for their future, and then support from the GT department who are trained to support creative gifted learners. So like if you are a kid who's in this program and you have an IEP or a 504, I also come to those meetings. I also meet regularly with Natalie to try to make sure that the social emotional needs and supports are for our kids. In terms of qualifying for Nobel, this year we normally don't start testing this soon, but because of the wackadoodle pandemic, and because we think that the creativity testing goes better in person than online, we are starting testing tomorrow. We're doing testing October 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th. And the reason why we picked those days is because BPS students during distance learning are not doing stuff in their classes in the same way on Wednesdays as they are the other days. And so we're doing testing at the Education Services Center, which is attached to Oak Grove Middle School. And then we're also doing testing this Saturday. And what you would do is, if you were interested in seeing if your student could qualify for this program, is that you would fill out this form that's there, and hopefully Erin can put it again in the chat. And then what you could do is schedule testing for your student. So like I will be at ESC tomorrow and on Saturday, and I will be giving the Torrance test of creativity to students in person. We also have an application process, but it's okay if you don't apply right now. But if you would want to have testing, the benefit of getting testing done now is that it's happening now. I'll just be honest, like this pandemic is weird. Like, and people are nervous about coming in, spaces. And so like the testing that we have set up right now is it's going to be like 2 to 5 students with me in a room, and so there'll be lots of distancing and everyone will be masked and it will be safe. But we would like to get this testing done before we hit cold and flu season, because then it's going to be harder to feel like we can get people together that don't know each other in the same room. And so normally I don't actually do this testing until the spring. That didn't work out so well last year, just to be clear. So this year we're going to learn from those mistakes and we're going to offer this testing sooner. And so that is why we are doing this. Is not because we actually have to start this testing now for next year. It's that I want us to find the right students for this program. And so now we are at the citing part where we're going to take your questions, and I am going to shut off this recording